Well, TikTok CEO Shouzi Chu is set to testify before Congress on Thursday as a debate around a TikTok ban in the U.S. intensifies and gains bipartisan support. Joining us now to discuss what's next for the social media platform in the U.S., we have Steve Pavlik, Renaissance Macro Research Head of Policy. Steve, it's good to see you. So it's certainly a high-profile showdown with the TikTok CEO heading to Capitol Hill. How do you see this playing out and potentially influencing a potential ban?
Well, I think this is sort of his last go around. He's going to have a lot of bipartisan, probably strong opposition just heading in there. And I think he's well aware of that. I think that's why you've seen TikTok just over the last week really step up its marketing here in DC and its lobbying and advocacy efforts. And I don't know at this point if it can really make that much of a difference. I think from, you mentioned earlier, bipartisan maybe legislation that now seems to be in the works. And that's important because prior to the midterms, I think some Democrats may have been a little reluctant to do anything legislatively because they didn't want to potentially upset that important constituency of younger users that use this app. Now that we're beyond that, I think more of these security threats are becoming apparent, particularly the story from the Department of Justice over TikTok spying into journalists. I think now just there tends to be a little more momentum here. And that's not in isolation because you had CFIUS, Committee for Investment in the United States, for years trying to resolve these national security issues with TikTok. And I think now there's some leverage here from the Biden administration saying, look, you can go ahead and divest and reach some terms here with CFIUS, or we'll go ahead and we have enough legislation, enough support here for legislation that can move to give the Commerce Department to ban it. That could put CFIUS in a difficult position because if they feel that lawmakers are going to go ahead and move forward and pass this bill, they may decide, look, we're not in a position to even honor these terms anymore because we don't want to get in the way of the legislators. And then if you're ByteDance and you're TikTok, you may figure, well, what's this point of reaching an agreement with CFIUS if it could all be mute here, in a few months. So I think it'll be interesting to see if he can sort of resolve these outstanding concerns from lawmakers with respect to data storage and the algorithm use.
Primarily, what are those national security concerns and how concerned should parents, for an example, be about using TikTok, their children, that is?
Well, as a parent myself, you have some different just concerns just in general with social media use that's probably not unique to TikTok. But from the national security perspective, I think the stated concerns are probably valid. And that is the potential that any Chinese company, when required to provide information over to the Chinese government, is forced to comply. There's no appeals process. So the ability for TikTok to gather information on US users, I think, is significant. And we think about future applications, having data on people to realize benefits in artificial intelligence. I think that's one concern. There's another concern with respect to the ability to be a platform for Chinese communist government propaganda. You have young, impressionable minds here. When you think about people that grow up to be in positions of business and civic leadership, that provides a really desirable platform to potentially influence those minds in a very vulnerable age. And then I think we also see now, too, just growing concern over foreign interference in our elections. Again, the ability to have that platform is something I just don't think we're at risk. And then from just a bigger perspective, I think there's some concerns here when we think of technology, this blurring distinction between national security and economic security. From a U.S. technology perspective, a lot of U.S. social media platforms aren't given unrestricted access in China. So there could be an issue here of just some reciprocal market access that may need to be addressed. And there are a lot of opportunities for U.S. firms to benefit. I know, Meta, I think one of your earlier guests mentioned in its Facebook Reels would be a logical beneficiary here. So I think those are some of the things that policymakers are trying to consider.
Steve, how would it ban, if in fact TikTok is banned, how would that ban work? How would it be implemented? There's lots of questions just about those backdoor ways that people would still have access to TikTok here in the U.S.
You're right. And to be fair, I don't have all the answers there. I think what you would have to start with is, can you go ahead and remove it from platforms like the App Store? Can you go ahead and restrict its use for commerce? I think that's where you'd have to start. Now, the ability for technology companies to actually go ahead and remove an app that's installed, that is beyond my level of expertise. But I think that's where we're headed.
Steve, do you think it should be banned? And what's the best way to go about it? Is it bipartisan legislation? Is it the Commerce Department?
Personally, I do think it should be banned. I was somebody who worked at the Treasury Department when we passed legislation to expand the scope of CFIUS. TikTok concerns actually came once I left the department, but just hearing what's been voiced, I don't think, particularly in this environment, that we should be vulnerable to this. And with respect to legislation, I think that's really important. The Trump administration tried to proceed with some bans of TikTok, and TikTok was able to successfully defend those in court, partly because they didn't have legislation to back this up. This legislation would give the Biden administration a firmer footing, presumably to prevail with a successful legal challenge. And I suspect that's one of the reasons they've come out and endorsed the legislation.
Going to be an interesting week on that front. Thank you so much, Steve Pavlik. Appreciate that.